that raises an interesting question. One time I put a Hitler quote into a book, and somebody took me to task. They're like, you must be kidding, right? Like, aren't you even Jewish? What the fuck is wrong with you? And I was like, yeah, well, listen to what I quoted him as saying. And I think it turns out this is not actually an authentic Hitler quote, but it's kind of like roughly.
Point still holds.
Yeah. He said, what fortune it is for people in power that the masses do not think. And so I found that to be just, I felt like that was wisdom. I felt like it was worth noting. And, it's a thing of beauty to be like, okay, so if Hitler was appreciating the fact that the Germans never really had the wherewithal to question him and say, this man, he looks and sounds nuts, and he's just pointing to scapegoating, and he's got totalitarian ideas. This is the person we want to follow to the bitter end. And some people followed him to the bitter end. They were brought up in Nuremberg trials for following him until the bitter end. And so, yes, those guys were sort of like power mongers, maybe sociopaths, I don't know, but some people were just, they lived a normal life, and then they went to the crematorium and would throw the switch or whatever, drop the Zyklon B into the middle of a bunch of Jews or whatever. That was what they did during the daytime. And so that's just like a horrific lack of being willing to question. So where I'm going with this is Nietzsche is super interesting, but he's really only like a little piece of glass in a mosaic that one needs to study if they want to be wiser or understand certain values better, because he's so like polemical or hardcore in how he's putting things. And Iran, she was raised in the USSR, so when she was writing books, she wasn't trying to do a beautiful, balanced, spherical look at values. She was trying to be like, hey people, communism is horrible. Don't you see this? I'm going to write a fiction novel that's going to blow your socks off, and you're going to think just like I do that communism must be avoided at all costs. But that's kind of like a lot of emotion, kind of a knee-jerk reaction, kind of. So her books deserve to be in the pantheon of incredible books. But if you were to use books to grow wiser, you'd have to have a collection of 1,500 of them. You'd have to read them all and think about them all, probably talk with other people about them all, at which point you could be, ready to say, here's what I think of Nietzsche.
Yep. No, I think it's a good answer. And I think it speaks to particularly the Hitler quote, and that story I think is an interesting one, because it's hard and I get the visceral reaction, but I think in the spirit of your value and wisdom is blind, if you want to call it that, in that wisdom can be found anywhere. And sometimes it's very directly found in people that are perceived as evil or are evil or are the ones that we would think least likely, because we have to understand that that's part of the world. Wisdom means understanding all, I think, or an aspect of it is trying to understand all of it. We can't, but we try. And you can't just ignore certain aspects of it because it makes you uncomfortable or the person was horrible. Even more the reason possibly to lean in and say, hey, let me understand how that person thought, because I don't want that to happen again. And I think that is representative of the concept of wisdom, to be all inclusive and encompassing like that. So I think it's a great answer.